see, I guess having these 26 qualities is as a human being, we have the chance to cultivate ourselves to have these 26 qualities. Because these 26 qualities, like what you say, Prabhuji, is a passport to the kingdom of God. And the thing is, this as a human life, we have the chance to cultivate ourselves and to learn, develop all these 26 qualities. That is why, as a human form, is the most precious and blessed life form, like what you guys say. And why is it we need to have all these qualities? If we really go back to Godhead, there shouldn't be any tinge of a agitation. And what if and it is so pure. That's why we are separated, we're in a human life, and we have tinge of like impurity, in a form that we are not steady, we get angry easily. Then this is the time that we learn and develop ourselves so that we really go back to Godhead. And that's why we need all these 26 important qualities.
Okay, wonderful answer. That's exactly right. So because over in the spiritual world, everyone is already having these amazing qualities. So if we go in without these qualities, we are more like an outcast. Right? We are like an outcast. We will not fit in, right? There is a possibility that we will cause problems over there. We will create issues for the denizens of the spiritual world. And that's the reason why before we go there, we need to earn the right. Another way of looking at it, a very simple analogy is, if the spiritual world is vibrating at a certain frequency, if we are not at the same frequency, we will not be able to align with them, right? Therefore, before we actually get to the spiritual world, we need to be vibrating in the same frequency. And these 26 qualities are actually allowing us to vibrate in the same frequency as the denizens of the spiritual world. Okay. Thank you very much, Cindy Mataji. See, your presence, your association is so great. We are learning so much just by you being around. Please come again. Please come back to our classes. Don't just attend once in a blue moon, Cindy.
Sorry, I'm also learning from you. Sometimes I listen to your YouTube recording. Yes.
Yeah, but be present now. We learn from you. Okay, let's continue. Right. So similarly in Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, the same qualities are once again discussed. Right. So tolerance is so difficult. Right? It's so difficult for us to be tolerant. Right? Why? Because we have already set expectations. We have set expectations that this is how the world should orchestrate itself. This is how people should react towards me. And therefore, since our expectations are already set, it's very difficult for us to tolerate when things don't go in alignment to what we want. Right? A devotee must be very kind and he's not partial, right? So, for example, when we are queuing up for prasadam, right, we need to open-heartedly engage with everyone. We need to open-heartedly greet, right? Be it the most saintly person or someone who may not have all the saintly qualities, or someone who is the richest person, or someone who is the poorest person, right? That is the meaning of not being partial. It's not that, oh, I'm saying Hare Krishna to only the most spiritual person, and then for those who are, not there yet, I just ignore them. It's important for us to also uplift everyone, right? So, and he's also kind to both human beings and to animals. We have already discussed this. Yeah? He's not such a fool that he will kill a goat Narayan to feed a human Narayan. Okay. So this is what Bhagavatam is explaining, and he's very, very peaceful. He's kind to all living entities. etc. Right? So now let me get deeper into these energy principles to describe the absorption of mercy, grace, and benevolence. In our classes, we have already explained that, Krishna is not partial, right? His mercy, his grace is there for everyone. But if we do not open our receptacles to accept this, right, how are we to gain this mercy? Now let's just use the energy principles in physics to describe this phenomena. All right. So we begin with Sri Krishna. Krishna has already explained that everything emanates from him, regardless of whether it's the spiritual world, it is the material world, it is the material qualities, the spiritual qualities, everything actually emanates from him. Okay, which means that mercy, grace, benevolence, everything is actually coming from him. Even the compassion which we are, showcasing to others, we are showing our compassion to others. We are living a humble life, full of humility, etc. All of this is actually qualities coming from the Lord. Okay. So then how will it get transmitted to us? Right? Very important is, if there is devotion from our side, it starts with having faith. If there is faith, there is devotion. We engage in prayer. We engage in chanting the Lord's name. And finally, if there's sharanagati, which is just surrendering to the Lord, then you will realize that, wow, this mercy is beginning to flow to me. Okay? So the first process in the flow of energy is from the source, the energy is transmitted. Okay? It's transmitted, and the entity which is receiving it can only receive it if there is already a right. There's a they are already having certain qualities. Like, for example, they are engaging in devotion. They are chanting, they are in the association of other devotees, they are reading scriptures, they are doing service, selfless service, right, dovetailing all of their activities to the Lord. Then we become a nice receptacle to receive this energy from the Lord. Then the third phase is absorption, right? Once we receive this energy of the Lord, because we are already in devotion, then it leapfrogs our devotion even further. How does it do it? Our heart becomes, purer and purer and purer, right? The Supreme Lord in our heart, the super soul, becomes activated, and like a washing machine, the Supreme Lord is clearing the anarthas from our heart, right? Lifetimes and lifetimes of anarthas which are just covering up our spirit soul, these are slowly being removed by the Supreme Lord. There's no other way it can be removed, right? And slowly, the next stage is transformation, which is the heart, right? The super soul has already cleaned up all of that dirt, and the soul, the individual soul, becomes so full of brightness, right? There is so much of purification now, and this supreme soul, this individual soul will start growing further and further, right? Spiritually. The individual soul will be able to see the qualities like compassion, humility, etc., just emanating from itself. Okay? It's just an automated process. And when this happens, that particular spirit soul, because of its compassion, the spirit soul will not be able to see others suffer. And therefore, this spirit soul will begin to give association to others, explain to them about the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Explain to them that they are just wasting their lives away if they do not engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. Explain to them about the entire devotional service process. And that's where the last process, which is distribution, actually happens. Okay. Which is sharing with others. And the compassion which is shining from this individual soul is now distributed to others. And then the process continues from the top again for those who have just been introduced to Krishna consciousness. Amazing, isn't it? Any reflections on this?
I had one question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
It goes from top down as it is mentioned here.
Yes.
So, are we eligible first of all to receive this energy? Because it seems that it first comes and then it develops, and then we become compassionate and distribute knowledge. But I think we need to purify and elevate ourselves to receive, receive that energy which has been transmitted. Like very few people are eligible to receive the energy directly from the Lord, I feel. So how is that first process, if you can explain more, Prabhuji?
So the first process actually happens because of the costless mercy of a devotee. Remember the last box, distribution. Because of the costless mercy of one who has been purified, right? That person can actually give this devotion to us. The person who is purified, like a spiritual master, like Srila Prabhupada or any of our acharyas, they are purified. They are the Goswamis who have controlled their senses. They can therefore distribute this to others. Okay. And that's why the worst of the hippies, they could become the purest of devotees.
So when we start our devotional service, and if we receive, mercy from a pure devotee, like the hippies received they received the mercy from Srila Prabhupada. So that was actually the energy of the Lord which they were receiving.
Exactly. Everything emanates from the Lord only, Prabhu. Everything is from the Lord.
And this brings us back to our initial things, what we were discussing, association. Yes. Association is very important.
Correct.
Because as we can recollect here, that this is passed from a devotee who has a compassion. And if we come in contact with such, come in association with such devotees. So, and in previous classes also we have learned that Krishna appreciates when we talk about the stories about his devotees also.
Exactly. Right. So this Sukriti, right? This Sukriti to start our devotional service. Okay. The source could be from our previous lives, right? Our previous lives, we have engaged, we have done a little bit of devotional service. We met someone, right? We met a spiritual master, etc. And then we are continuing in this life. Srila Prabhupada himself had told the hippies when he was teaching this concept, and they were saying like, but what about us? He said, I am your Sukriti. That means the spiritual master can also be the Sukriti which ignites the devotion in a person's heart. Okay. In other words, the association of a pure devotee can also spark this devotion in one's heart. So never ever underestimate going to a spiritual dham, hearing to a particular devotee, right? These are all very, very potent processes, which many a times we take it for granted. So going into a dham, listening to, Hari Katha by one who is realized, one who has seen the truth, he can actually share this with us. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, we need to actually approach one who has seen the truth. Ravi Prabhu, any realizations from this concept?
To me, it's very heartening that causeless mercy can also be not just from Krishna himself, but the pure devotee can also give causeless mercy through Krishna. We may not be able to see Krishna with our own imperfect eyes, but with close association with pure devotees, and even hearing about Gita, Bhagavatam, we feel a sense of connection back to our divine true selves. We may be miscreants, we may be people who have been sinful, but this association, this close contact, this touch helps us to bring us at least on the journey to the perfectorial stage of life, that what we are meant to be is to be what it's identify firstly ourselves as spirit souls, and from there then start our journey towards connection to the divine realm, and back to Godhead. So I find this very it's very, very good to the heart, to hear this, that just a mere touch and mere feel, a mere reading and listening can at least start you on this journey, back to Godhead.
Okay, very good point, Prabhu. At the same time, if we do not do something about this, so for example, Prabhupada had touched millions of hearts, right? In the Trafalgar Square Rath Yatra, in San Francisco Rath Yatra, etc. There were thousands, hundreds and thousands of people. They received the mercy from Srila Prabhupada, right? They saw Srila Prabhupada was singing, giving Hari Katha, etc. But the Sukriti was actually coming there, but they did not do anything about this. So sometimes this Sukriti may just pass by, all right? It's there potent, but then if we don't do something about it, it remains dormant there. It remains dormant. It might still be there in the heart. And one fine day, if you have a clear intention of wanting to reawaken yourself from this slumber, the Supreme Lord may, if he so desire, allow this to happen. Right? Therefore, this Sukriti can come from previous lifetimes where we have not perfected it, or where it had remained dormant, or it could also come from this lifetime where we had the association of a pure devotee. And that's the reason why, once again, I want to tell you, whenever there are conventions like this, whenever we have a little bit of, free time, etc., just go to this holy dham and associate with the devotees. I can tell you, I can assure you, I can even put my 1 month salary down and have a bet with you that when you come back from these places, you will feel transformed. But the sad thing is, material nature, the three modes of material nature surrounding us will bring us back to status quo. All right. That's why we just need to continuously keep on improving ourselves. Okay. All right. So important, don't just keep on putting the mask for others. I need to put the mask for myself too. Right? All of us, all of you need to put the mask for ourselves. Right? The last time when I did a quick round robin to find out how many of us are actually really chanting. Let me just close this and let's get real over here. The last time we asked each other, how many of us are actually really sitting down, taking time to close our eyes and really sit down and chant. Many of us were saying that it's difficult. It's really difficult, right? But Krishna has given us 24 hours. Okay, 24 hours is 100%. Can we just give 1% back to Krishna? 1% is 15 minutes. I'm not saying do 2 rounds, 3 rounds or whatever. Just 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes before we engage in anything else, tell ourselves that I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to be with my japa. I'm just going to be chanting the Lord's name. There's nothing else going to be coming between me and my Supreme Lord. 15 minutes. Can we make a vow today? 15 minutes, a commitment, 15 minutes. Bhagwanji. Lina Mataji, can you please unmute and tell Bhagwanji, can he make a commitment today? 15 minutes. He's always telling me he struggles with 16 rounds. No need to do 16 rounds yet. Start with 15 minutes. Okay? Malti, thank you very much. Let's start with 15 minutes. And I tell you, within a few weeks, you will realize that 15 minutes, no, let me do more. And then we can talk about 16 rounds, etc. Shuruvaat to honi chahiye. Let's start with 15 minutes. Can everyone just, raise your hand? Yes, I will do it. Shalini Mataji, yes. The rest of you, even when you are offline, yes, very good. Ravinda, thank you, Prabhu. Chitra Mata, thank you very much. Malti, thank you. Lalita, thank you. Manoj Prabhu, 15 minutes. Just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, scientifically, it has been proven that when we close our eyes, right, it helps our meditation in a better way. If we can visualize, all right, when we are chanting, we are remembering Krishna, we are visualizing Krishna, we are putting a tulsi leaf on Krishna's lotus feet, that also helps. When we are meditating and chanting and we can do some breath work at the same time, that will also help us. Okay, so you can do 4 things. Manoj, don't say can try. Try will never happen. We need to make a commitment. Yes, whenever we are walking, etc., we can. But all I'm saying is, that is great. But let's sit down 15 minutes. No one comes between me and my Supreme Lord for 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes. Okay? And next week you tell me how was it? Okay? Thank you very much for making the commitment. Okay, Prabhu, is it full screen, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. All right. And therefore, now we go back to the 4 sages, yeah? Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana. What's the time now? Okay, then 9:45. And Sanat Kumar, upon reaching Vaikuntha, right? So remember, why is it that they can actually move from one place to another and even go to the spiritual world? How is it that these 4 boys, the sons of Brahma, can actually go to the spiritual world? We discussed this the last time.
They have the siddhis, Prabhuji.
Exactly, right? They had that siddhis. Okay. You can become lighter than the lightest. You can travel at the speed of light. You can be heavier than the heaviest. You can materialize things. All right. You can bring stuff from another place to where you are. All of this is possible. Right? So for them, it was all possible. And therefore, upon reaching Vaikuntha, they just perceived so much of unprecedented happiness. They found that the spiritual sky was illuminated by highly decorated airplanes piloted by the best devotees of Vaikuntha and was predominated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everyone was with 4 hands, but the Lord had the Kasturba jewel and he also had the Srivastaka, right? Which Anuj Prabhu explained the last time in the class. So the 4 Kumaras, they have not seen Narayan yet, not yet. Okay, they are just seeing the denizens of the citizens of the spiritual world. So they are going gate by gate by gate. They've passed the first 6 gates. Now they are getting into the 7th gate. After passing through the 6 entrances of Vaikuntha Puri, the Lord's residence, without feeling astonishment at all the decorations, they saw at the 7th gate 2 shining beings of the same age, armed with maces and adorned with most valuable jewelry, earrings, diamonds, helmets, garments, etc. Okay. And these 4 boys, they were like, okay, we have gone through the 6 gates. Now let us go into the 7th gate to see the Lord. And they were not allowed. When the Kumaras, although by far the fittest people, the most spiritual, they were Brahmavadis, were thus forbidden entrance by the 2 chief doorkeepers of Sri Hari, while other divinities looked on. Their eyes became red because of anger due to their great eagerness to see the most beloved Master Sri Hari. So you see, even pure devotees became angry. But this is not material anger, this is spiritual anger. Can you mention any other personalities who had enacted this spiritual anger? Anyone?
Hanumanji.
Okay, tell us more.
Lord Narasimha.
Okay, wonderful. So, Hanumanji, can you explain how? Anush Prabhu?
Yeah, because he did not like, of course, that that Ravan had captured Mother Sita, and actually Lord Ram did not tell him, but he burnt Lanka and he tried to teach a lesson to Ravan, like without killing him, because he kept that for like Lord Ram, but he had that anger in him, so he didn't go overboard, but he did his part by actually telling Ravan about the prowess of Lord Ram and about what he's going to face in the future, but he still didn't learn actually.
Yeah. The key word is he did not go overboard, right? Because even in spiritual anger, there is a degree of control. Otherwise, he could have burned the entire Lanka, including Sita, and then come back and tell Ram that, oh, I'm sorry about this, right? No, it was controlled in a big, big way, right? Very important point. So, even this...
There was one Guruji who gave his father was dead snake or something was there, and then he gave
Samikya Rishi.
Yes.
Wonderful. So, wonderful. Yeah. So that one is
that's how that's how the recitation of the Lord's Srimad Bhagavat came into being.
Wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, wonderful example.
The other example, Lord Shiva. What happened was Markandeya was a devotee of Lord Shiva, and then Yamraj was going to take Markandeya, and then what happened was Yamraj has a noose, right? The noose was thrown towards Markandeya in this fog, but then caught the shivling. And then Shiva then wanted to throw his trident, but because Markandeya was a devotee, he let go of Yamraj, god of death. But he was very angry because he wanted to kill Markandeya at the same time, but at the same time, he made a mistake of putting the noose around the shivling. So that's another example.
Yeah, and again with Lord Shiva, when Parvati was annihilated or emulate, what do you call that?
No.
When
she was taking a bath, and then his son Ganeshji came in, and he was angry, and then he cut the head of Ganeshji. That was also a Shiva.
Exactly, and also when Uma, is it Uma or Parvati? When
no, that was Sati. The Sati was annihilated, but Sati was annihilated.
That's right, yeah, Sati. So that was when Lord Shiva was really, very, very upset, and he took out one of his hair and threw it onto the floor, and then Veerabhadra appeared from there. Okay, that will be discussed in Bhagavatam very, very shortly also. Okay, so these are all instances of spiritual anger, right? So the younger brother of desire is anger. If one's desire is not fulfilled, the younger brother anger will follow. Here we can mark that even great saintly personalities like the Kumaras were also angry, but they were not angry for their personal interests. They were angry because they were forbidden to enter the palace to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, the theory that in the perfectional stage one should not have anger is not supported in this verse. Anger will continue even in the liberated stage. Okay. Once again, even anger comes from the spiritual world, comes from the Lord. Okay. Very nice. So the sages, yeah, Jaya and Vijaya then said, who are these? The four Kumaras said, who are these two persons who have developed such a discordant mentality, even though they are posted in the service of the Lord, the highest position, and are expected to have developed the same qualities as the Lord? Okay. So the denizens of the spiritual world, they are also supposed to have the same qualities as the Lord. Not all, but around the same. Okay. Actually, if you look at the qualities of Vishnu and Krishna, again, there is a difference. For example, Krishna plays the flute, but Vishnuji does not do that. Okay. So how are these two persons living in Vaikuntha when they do not even have this quality? Where is the possibility of an enemy coming to this kingdom of God? The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no enemy. Who could be envious of him? Probably these two persons are imposters. Therefore, they suspect us to be like themselves. Okay. The reason why I'm going through this chapter in detail is all of us already know the story, but let's go through some of these verses. Really interesting, right? So probably these two persons are imposters. Therefore, they suspect others to be like themselves, right? You know, when even in the offices, etc., right? When someone is speaking ill of another person, maybe deep down in that person, there's these qualities already, and therefore it is, somehow coming out in this way. Sometimes when we are in this fault finding mentality, maybe that fault is there in our hearts, and therefore we are able to recognize this in others. So when the doormen of Vaikuntha Loka, who were certainly devotees of the Lord, found that they were going to be cursed by the four Brahmanas, okay, they at once became very much afraid and fall down at the feet of the Brahmanas in great anxiety. Why? Because a Brahmana's curse cannot be counteracted by any kind of weapon. So we have to be very, very careful. Don't offend a devotee of the Lord. Yeah. And actually, it can be quite scary when we go to the spiritual dham. You do not know who is there. Sometimes, when someone is asking for a donation, we do not give it, or someone, it just becomes very stressful for you, and we do not know what the repercussions are. So I normally try not to entertain any of these pandas who are like saying, I'll do this puja for you, etc. Just say it's all done already. I remember once I was at Radha Kund. I brought my in-laws, my wife, my kids, etc. And I knew the panda there, right? Because every time we go to Radha Kund, he's like, he's terrorized the whole place, right? He will ensure that he does the puja for you and you give him money. So this time around, I had my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and a few other devotees from Malaysia. So I brought them to Radha Kund, and he said, okay, I'll do a prayer for them. I said, okay, now do a prayer. And then I gave him 100 rupees at the end of it. And he was saying, no, there are so many of them. How can I just take 100 rupees? I said, yeah, but this is like 20 years ago, 100 rupees. Yeah, that's what they want to give you. He actually tore the note in front of us. He tore the note, and I told him, you are tearing Lakshmi Devi. What kind of devotee are you? I was angry. The guy, I do not know, he must have cursed me even further. Every time I go to Vrindavan now, when I go to Radha Kund, he sees me and he keeps a distance from me and I keep a distance from him. Anyway, so we have to be very, very careful of this. Yeah. Anyway, after being cursed by the sages, the doorman said, "It is quite apt that you have punished us for neglecting to respect sages like you. But we pray that due to your compassion at our repentance, the illusion of forgetting the Supreme Personality of Godhead will not come upon us as we go progressively downwards." Right? So what they are saying is we don't want to forget the Lord. So that should also be our prayer, that whatever it is, that we don't forget the Lord. And at our final moments, we can remember Him. And that starts with practice. That starts with consistency. That starts with at least 15 minutes per day. Not the number of rounds at our stage, just 15 minutes. To a devotee, any heavy punishment is tolerable, but the one which effects forgetfulness of the Supreme Lord, that is not tolerable. And therefore, the doormen who were also devotees could understand the punishment meted out to them, for they were conscious of the great offense they had committed by not allowing the four sages to enter Vaikuntha Loka. So they repented, right? They repented and they are now asking for some mercy. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, text number 19, right? I'm just extracting what's mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are envious and mischievous, those who are lowest among men, are cast by me into the ocean of material existence, into various demonic species of life. And it continues, attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demonic life, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down the most abominable type of existence. So what's happening is, if we are envious, we are mischievous, there's also going to be a possibility that we will forget the Supreme Lord. The moment we forget the Supreme Lord, right, every birth which we take, we will just go lower and lower and lower into the demonic life. And therefore, we cannot approach the Lord. Okay. Then, the next verse continues. At that very moment, the Lord, who is called Padmanabha. Any of you been to Padmanabha Swami temple in Trivandrum?
Yeah, I went, but outside the queue was so long that we just had to go outside only and do a circle outside. We could not go inside the main central dome.
Okay. That's the richest temple in the world, na, Prabhu?
No, I'm not aware of that, but
yes.
It is the richest. They have certain rules that, and normally the queue starts 2 hours before the actual time. And there are 2 times in the morning as well as in the evening, but is really means it's really tough to go inside.
Okay.
Unless you we have a patience to wait. If you have a very short duration and just going through all the tourist attractions, then this is a very challenging time.
Okay. Maybe next time.
Yeah, but technically we have a photo in front of the temple, as well as we went through the outer circle. Inside the temple, there is an outer circle also, there's inner circle also. You can go outer and then come back outside also. That's also allowed. But you can't go into the curb or the central sanctum.
Okay. Very nice. I remember going there about 20 years ago with my 2 daughters, and they were wearing Punjabi suit and they had to wear a sarong outside.
Everywhere it's compulsory in sarong, and the men don't have to wear the top. It's a top-like sarong.
Yeah.
And then this females also have certain controls, but you cannot even carry anything, including mobiles and everything. It's just kept outside.
Exactly. Yeah. So at that very moment, the Lord, who is called Padmanabha, because of the lotus grown from his navel, and who is the delight of the righteous, learned about the insult offered by his own servants to the four saints. And accompanied by Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, he went to the spot on those very feet sought for by recluses and great sages, right? So the Lord started walking to where this commotion was happening. Okay. So the sages headed by Sanaka Rishi saw that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, who was formerly visible only within their hearts in ecstatic trance, had now actually become visible to their eyes. Okay. So even before getting into the seventh gate, they actually saw the Lord coming out to see them. As the Lord came forward, accompanied by his own associates, bearing all paraphernalia such as the umbrella and a chamara fan, the white bunches of hair moved very gently like two swans. Okay, so this is the chamara you can see over there. Okay. You know what's the chamara actually made from? Anyone knows? Can you just unmute yourself? What the chamara is made of?
Is it feathers, Prabhuji?
No.
It's a leaves of a tree.
No. You'll be shocked if I tell you what it's made of.
Animal skin?
Exactly. Okay, it's made of, in the Himalayas, you have the yak, So it's actually made from the yak's tail, the last part of the tail. Yeah, it's made from that. Okay. Then you may ask, yeah, but it's bone. It's made from bone and hairs. How can you offer that to the Lord? There are some exceptions. What is the other exception?
Shankha.
Exactly. All right. The shank is also from the sea, right? It is like the house of I'm not sure which sea organism it is, snail or whatever. I do not know that, but anyway, it's from the sea, and it's like the accommodation or the shell for one of the sea creatures. Okay, it's the bone, sort of a bone like a house. That's also used. Okay, so there are exceptions. Wonderful, right? So Sankha and the Chamara, these are the two exceptions which are used in the service of the Lord. Right? So white bunches of hair move very gently like two swans, and due to the favorable breeze, the pearls garlanding the umbrella also moved like drops of nectar falling from white full moon or ice melting due to a gust of wind. So what you can see over here is, while the Lord is moving, all of his associates are actually serving him. Right? And that's what a devotee is actually wanting to do. What the devotee wants to do is, at the end of his life, he wants to go back to the spiritual world where he can do some menial service for the Supreme Lord. Okay. But some devotees don't even want that. What they are saying is, we don't want to go back to the spiritual world. Whatever the Lord may want, right? Whatever the Lord wishes, we will be happy to do that, right? As long as we can remember the Supreme Lord, as long as we can continue to serve the Lord, even in a devotee's house, right? We will be very happy for that birth. We don't want to always go back to the spiritual world. So different gradations of devotees. Okay. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. And that's the reason why when we serve, when we do devotional service, we will also feel that pleasure. Right? Just come to Gauranga Center one day and serve the devotees. Just come to Gauranga Center one day and clean after the program is over. Just mop, sweep, right? And you will feel that, wow, this is the Lord's house. The Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. And after I'm doing this service, I also feel so much of pleasure. Spiritual bliss will be there. His auspicious presence is meant for everyone's benediction. And his affectionate smiling and glancing touch the core of the heart. Don't even need to go to Gauranga Center, even in your own house, your altar. You clean your altar, right? You do abhishek. Right? You read the scriptures to the Lord. Do you know you can also read the scriptures to the Lord? So one of our devotee, Mataji in Singapore, she lives in Woodlands. Right? So in the evening, every day, she reads the Bhagavatam to the Lord. This is the Lord's own story, but she reads the Bhagavatam to the Lord for the Lord's pleasure. Okay. Just like Prabhupada, when Prabhupada, after he had written all the purports, the books, etc., he will read them. He will also ask the devotees to actually read and let him hear the Krishna book, etc. And Prabhupada will say, actually, it's not me who have written this. It's Krishna who has written this. Krishna gave the entire, script to me, and I was just putting it down. So the Lord's bodily color is blackish, and his broad chest is the resting place of the goddess of fortune. And what does she do? She glorifies the entire spiritual world, the summit of all heavenly planets. Thus it appeared that the Lord was personally spreading the beauty and good fortune of the spiritual world. The Lord was adorned with a girdle that shone brightly on a yellow cloth covering his large hips, and he wore a garland of fresh flowers which were distinguished by humming bees. So this is all an amazing description of the spiritual world. Okay. Actually, even you can see these humming bees in Little India. When you see the garlands, humming bees will go around the garlands, right? So this is like, a replica of what's happening in the spiritual world. His lovely wrists were graced with bracelets, and he rested one of his hands on the shoulder of Garuda, his carriers, and twirled a lotus with another hand. Okay. When the breeze carrying the aroma of tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord entered the nostrils of those sages, what happened? They experienced a change both in the body and in their mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. Okay, so we have discussed this before. They were Brahmavadis. They were so attached to the Brahman effulgence of the Lord. Yes, they accepted the personal form of the Lord, but they always felt that the Brahman effulgence was much, 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 much higher than the personal features of the Lord, or for that matter, than the Paramatma feature of the Lord. They just felt, the personal form was not as great as the effulgence. So, after smelling the tulsi leaves, the aroma emanating from the Lord's field, they just had this change in body and in their mind. And it appears from this verse that the four Kumaras were impersonalists or protagonists of the philosophy of monism, becoming one with the Lord. Okay, so the monists, their agenda is, at the end of life, I just want to merge into the Brahman effulgence. But as soon as they saw the Lord's features, their minds changed. In other words, the impersonalists who feel transcendental pleasure in striving to become one with the Lord, he is defeated when he sees the beautiful transcendental features of the Lord. When these impersonalists, when they think that they are merging into the Brahman effulgence, okay, you have merged. And then what do? What can you do? You are still a spirit soul, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, there was never a time when you did not exist, and there will never be a time in future where you do not exist. And therefore, even after merging into the Brahman effulgence, they are still a spirit soul. They still exist independently. Then what do? Right? That's why the devotees say, we just want to serve the Lord. Because when we go to the spiritual world, or when we remain in any of the planetary systems, at least we want to continue serving the Lord. Because when we serve the Lord, we get this ananda. Okay, this spiritual bliss, which cannot be received even by those who have perfected their lives, so-called, by merging into the Brahman effulgence, because they can't serve anymore. They are just there in the effulgence of the Lord. In other words, the impersonalists who feel transcendental pleasure in striving to become one with the Lord is defeated when he sees the beautiful transcendental feature of the Lord. Because of the fragrance of his lotus feet carried by the air and mixed by the aroma of tulasi, their minds change. The minds of these four Kumaras change. Instead of becoming one with the Supreme Lord, they thought it wise to become devotees of the Lord. Becoming a servitor of the lotus feet of the Lord is better than becoming one with the Lord. I'll take a pause here to see if anyone has any realization on this. Cindy Mataji?
I guess service to the Lord is even like you used to tell us that if we ever have service to the Lord, right, and then it's better to serve the devotees of the devotees of the devotees of the Lord rather than you go directly to the service of the Lord, because Lord Sri Krishna recognizes the service that we have with this, and through the service of the devotees of the devotees of the devotees of the Lord, and then we learn a lot of humility, and this is the quality that we need to have, and that will also make Lord Sri Krishna happy, I feel.
Wonderful. Very nice. Very logical, isn't it? Very, very logical. Any other realizations? Anyone else? Okay, just go back to what we discussed this morning, that all these amazing qualities, okay, of compassion, right, humility, everything is actually coming from the Supreme Lord. When we serve the Lord, right, when we are in the same frequency as the Lord, then what's going to happen is we become receptacles to receive this mercy. So then we move on, the 43rd verse of this chapter. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to these four Kumaras like the inside of a blue lotus. Anyone seen a blue lotus? Shalini Mataji, in India, did you ever see a blue lotus?
Haven't.
Haven't. Yeah. I've only seen, the regular lotuses. And if you go to Krishna temple in Waterloo Street, they actually spray paint it, or maybe, I do not know what do they do. The color is a little bit different. In any case, and the Lord's smile appeared to be blossoming jasmine flowers. After seeing the face of the Lord, the four Kumaras were fully satisfied, and they wanted to see him further. They looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus, they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again and again. And so they finally achieved meditation of the Lord's personal features. What we are supposed to do is, while we are reading all of these verses, we are supposed to visualize this. And then when we are chanting the Supreme Lord's names, we can allow this visualization to actually come in front of us. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Huh? I was in Penang last week, and they had this parade of small kids dressed up as Krishna, Radharani, etc. There was this girl who dressed herself up as Krishna.
On Janmashtami.
On Janmashtami. I was like so captivated by the paintwork, and I just took a picture of her. So captivated. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it's pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary, but factual, as proved by great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievements, which we spoke about earlier on, the 8 siddhis. But for others, these achievements are not possible in full perfection. Okay. That is why these 8 kinds of achievements also allow the Lord to, when you are offering your food, the Lord can actually even just, He's everywhere firstly. All right. Even for that matter, if He's from the spiritual world, if He so desires, He can come, right, within less than a microsecond, because of this, one of these 8 kind of achievements. Okay, one of these 8 cities, He can actually come within a minute. Even if He's in the spiritual world, if we do not believe that He's everywhere, He's as Paramatma in our hearts, He's there in the atoms. Even if we think that He's just confined to the spiritual world, if the Lord so desires, when we are making an offering, the Lord can actually come immediately. Okay. Now the next question is, whether has the Lord partaken or eaten the food which is offered to Him? The Lord does not need to eat through His mouth, using His hands, etc. All of His senses are absolute, which means that He can even, eat the food just by looking at the food. Okay, that's the meaning of the senses are all absolute. Okay, for us, our senses are contained, which means that our eyes can only be for seeing, right? For sight. Our ears can only be for hearing. Our sense of touch is for feeling. But for the Lord, the senses are totally absolute. They can be used for any function as required by the Lord. Okay. Then the super soul, being seated in everyone's heart, can witness everyone's activities, past, present, and future. In the Upanishads, the super soul is described as being seated within the individual soul, with the individual soul as friend and witness. We have already discussed the 2 birds on a branch. One is eating the fruits and the other one is just watching, right? The moment the individual soul engages in spiritual activities or have a desire in serving the Lord, then the Lord will orchestrate His activities from then onwards. As a friend, the Lord is always anxious to get back His friend, the individual soul, and bring him back home, back to Godhead. Okay. And as a witness, He's the bestower of all benedictions, and He endows each individual with the result of his action. The super soul gives the individual soul all the facilities to achieve whatever he desires to enjoy in the material world. Remember the 3 doers? I desire. The super soul, as Paramatma in our heart, will sanction, and the material nature will then provide this facility for us to enjoy. Anush Prabhu, I think one of them is unmuted, needs to be muted. Suffering is a reaction to the living entity's propensity to try to lord it over the material world. So why are we suffering? Because we want to become the true enjoyers, right? Because we want to lord over the material world. But the Lord instructs His friend, the individual soul, who is also His son, to give up all the engagements and simply surrender unto Him for the real bliss, the real ananda, and an eternal life full of knowledge. The Kumaras then said, my dear Lord, you are not manifested to rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of a devotee, of everyone. That means although you are there in everyone's heart, but you are not manifested to those who do not have a clear intention of wanting to receive your mercy. But as far as we are concerned, we see your face, we see you face to face, although you are unlimited. The statements we have heard about you from our father Brahma through the years have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. So one fine day, when each and every one of you go back to the spiritual world, you can say that the statements which we have heard about you while we were reading the Srimad Bhagavatam And while we were hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, through the years have now actually been realized by your kind appearance. Okay? So don't be shocked when you go to the spiritual world. We have already seen whatever is written. Okay? Ravi Prabhu, Anuj Prabhu, Shalini, Cindy, Malti. Okay? Don't be surprised. Huh?
We will all meet with you there, over there, Prabhuji.
Let's see. We know that you are the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. The four Kumaras are saying, who manifests his transcendental form in the uncontaminated mode of pure goodness. If we are not in pure goodness, the Lord will not manifest. This transcendental eternal form of your personality can be understood only by your mercy. Okay, only if the Lord's desire, okay, costless mercy through this unflinching devotional service by great sages whose hearts have been purified in the devotional way. Okay, so this form of the Lord can only be visualized, can only be understood by the mercy of the Lord. You cannot know him without the mercy of the Lord. You cannot know the Lord without his mercy. And finally, the four Kumaras are also saying, the less intelligent persons in the material world are engaged by the four principles of benediction called Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, which is you do the right things, Dharma, right? You do the right things, you engage in the right activities, and then what's going to happen is you will get the benediction in the form of wealth. Okay, because you have not broken the religious principles, and therefore Dharma will reward you with Artha, which is the right wealth, the right talent, etc. And then what do you use this wealth for, this talent for? You use it to fulfill your desires, or karma. After years and years and years of fulfilling your desires, you will realize that, my God, is there something more than this? And the impersonalists or the Brahmavadis or the Mayavadis, they aim for moksha, which is, we have got tired of all of this. We just want to be liberated and we just want to merge into you. Okay, so that's the four objectives of the regular human life: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And generally, they prefer to take to religious life to achieve the material benediction, which is you do Dharma, you do the right conduct, you engage in the right spiritual, not spiritual, sort of spiritual activities, but with the clear intention of wanting to receive something in return. Whatever you receive in return, you satisfy the senses, right? The returns in the form of Artha satisfy your senses, your karma, and then when you got tired of it, you seek liberation. When by the process they have become confused or frustrated in fulfilling the maximum amount of sense enjoyment, they realize that there's this principle of diminishing returns. They try to become one with the Supreme, which is, according to their conception, mukti or liberation. So then what do all of us need to do? Do we follow this whole process of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, or is there something else for us? Anyone who likes to try? Ravi Prabhu, Anuj, Shalini, Cindy.
You explained very nicely, Prabhuji, about how like a person does dharma, in order to attain artha. So I didn't know this. I thought, these are four purushas, but like what you said is correct, that people actually are very materialistic. So they do dharma only for the purpose of getting artha, and that they use it for their kama satisfaction. So we devotees of the Lord, we know that we have to be above all this. And this is the material life. Actually, this is the material conception of life. All this is material karma. We need to do spiritual karma and reconnect back to our purpose of why we are here, rather than just be engaged, lifetimes after lifetime doing this dharma, artha, kam, moksha.
So you are introducing a fifth principle.
We go above the three material modes of nature to go into Shuddha Sattva, and do devotional service, rather than be engaged in doing only Satogun and just be in Satogun.
So you have come up with a fifth principle now.
Yes, Prabhuji, I will also like to add, according to my understanding, this was like we discussed the three modes of passion, which is goodness. And if we do goodness, means we will be born there again to take the benefit of what we earn, the karma. So it is better to do in pure goodness, so that we won't accumulate.
Okay, wonderful. So that is basically dovetailing all your activities to Krishna. Okay, let's bring it a few steps further. What is the fifth principle then? Ravi Prabhu, would you like to try? Yes, it's correct. Shuddha Sattva. Yes, Shalini Mataji, correct. Shuddha Sattva. Anush Prabhu, correct. It is devotional service. What is the epitome of devotional service?
We should, instead of thinking about our karma, we should think about the Lord's karma and try to satisfy that. Okay. That should be our objective.
Yes.
Bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga.
Yes, Bhakti yoga is a process. What is the highest level of that process?
I think we should do bhakti without expecting anything in return. That means we just do it for the Lord. We just want to make him happy. We just praise him. We just do everything for him without expecting anything for ourselves.
Wonderful. Yes, but what's the highest stage of bhakti yoga?
To surrender.
Okay, never mind.
Going back to Godhead.
Okay, but what is one level below that? Okay, it is prema bhakti. Remember, we went through the 9 steps, starting with having faith, and then the association of devotees, all of this, and the final stage is prema bhakti. So for a devotee, yes, these 4 purusha arthas are there, but on top of that, the focus of this devotee is in getting to this stage of prema bhakti, and not just engaging, being pulled down by these 4 purusharthas. Okay, so for devotees, it is introducing the highest level of bhakti, which is prema bhakti. Okay, where you are just, without any motivation, without any personal inspiration, without any personal gain, right? Unmotivated, uninterrupted devotion to the Lord, love for the Lord. That is what prema bhakti is. Okay, wonderful. So the 5th objective is known as prema or prema bhakti, which means pure selfless love of the Lord, specifically for Lord Krishna, which is divine love. And what is it characterized by? Intense self-love and devotion to Krishna that surpasses all other spiritual goals, including liberation. While moksha is the liberation of the soul from the cycle of birth and death, prema bhakti is the soul's eternal loving service to Krishna. And the devotee is not even bothered. Is it in the spiritual world? Am I going as a servant of the manjaris or servant of the gopis? Or am I like a blade of grass for the service of Krishna? Or maybe I'm just born in a devotee's family. All right? That's what prema bhakti is all about. And the significance is devotees believe that achieving prema bhakti is the ultimate purpose of human life. It is the state in which the soul is so immersed in loving devotion to Krishna beyond any material desire. Be it for the wife, for the husband, for the children, for society, for work, for parents, etc. It is beyond all of this, or even the desire for liberation. And the love is unconditional. Even if the Lord comes and makes things difficult for us, we know that there is a reason behind this, and we do not leave our unconditional love for the Lord. So the love is unconditional and is considered the most fulfilling and the eternal objectives. And this is really lived by the gopis. They were willing to do anything for Krishna, even if it means that they will have to go to the worst of the hellish planets. When Narada Muni went around asking...
Complete surrender, you mean?
Yes, complete surrender. Yeah. Narada Muni went around asking, Krishna is having a very high fever, and he says that my fever cannot be, healed by any medication, any herbs, etc., but it needs the dust of my devotee. So Narada Muni went around asking everyone, we need the dust of your feet. I need the dust of your feet to heal Krishna's fever. None of the Brahmins, no other Gopas, etc. gave it to Narada Muni. But when Narada Muni went to the gopis say, yeah, just take as much as you want, as long as our Krishna does not have to suffer from the high fever. All right. So they were not even bothered about what the repercussions would be. That is unconditional love for the Lord. Thus, prema bhakti is the fifth and ultimate goal for devotees, and it transcends the traditional goals of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And that brings us to the finale of today's class. Sorry, I took extra minutes. Oh Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish conditions of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of the lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulsi leaves are beautified when offered onto your lotus feet. And as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of the transcendental qualities. The four sages are saying this. The four sages now offer their humility to the personality of Godhead because of their having been haughty in cursing the two other devotees of the Lord. So now they are regretting, oh, we should not have gotten angry, So Jaya and Vijaya, the two doorkeepers who checked them from entering the Vaikuntha planet, were certainly offenders. But as Vaishnavas, the four sages should not have cursed them in anger. After the incident, they became conscious and they had what they had done wrong, and they prayed to the Lord that even in the hellish conditions of life, their minds might not be distracted from the engagement of service to the lotus feet of Lord Narayan. Okay, and then we know that they were born 3 times, okay, as demons, but even as demons, they were always remembering the Lord. Okay, not in a favorable condition. Okay, but still, they were killed by the Lord, and they went back after 3 lives to join back as the doorkeepers. So we have to be very, very careful about Vaishnava Aparadh. Right. So with this, we come to the end of today's class. There's a lot which we learned today. I just hope we can internalize and live these principles. Okay. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for taking 9 extra minutes.
Jai.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Dhanavad Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Sindhi Mataji, are you there?
Yes.
So did your son get the faculty he wanted?
Yes.
Ooh, congratulations. So Cindy Mataji's son is going to be a doctor. NUS or NTU?
NTU.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Jai, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Well done, well done. All glories to Krishna.
Yeah, all glories to Krishna. Hare
Congratulations.
Krishna.
Okay, take care. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Pranam.